What's good, people? What up, though? What up with you? And all that good shit right there. Yo, Jers, I'm sorry it's taking so long to make this video for you, man. Problem is, I've created a new setup, as you can see. Huh? You like my digs and shit? You like my digs? But I had some problems with the recording. I wanted to get some of your video content in there, as well as my own. But I had a little bit of a problem with the recording a couple times. So this is actually the 4th time I've recorded this. Right? But as you stated in your first video response to me, we want to stick with one subject. So let's go through it real quick so we can illustrate this for the people of why.
So much alike in a lot of ways, because I was actually going to suggest the same thing, but he suggested that we don't go too far afield or too far off and drop a whole bunch of different points back to back to back, because that's not productive and there's no way we'll be able to get through it if that would be the format.
And Jers, that is true, which is why I was kind of shocked that in that very video you made a whole bunch of different claims and statements about things that are not on the topic. And then you released a second video after that showing with even more claims and even more things that need to be addressed one by one. So in debate, like, this isn't a debate, this is a discussion. So I don't think you're doing this, so don't get me twisted here. In a debate, there's a tactic called the Gish Gallop. Now, what the Gish Gallop is that someone could blurt out a whole bunch of different claims and stuff and state that there are facts, but it takes me longer to refute those claims, because to refute it, I have to come up with a line-by-line evidence for each one of them. So you could say something wrong in a 20-minute video. You could say 20 different things, and I'd have to go through and dissect each one of those, which might take 5 to 10 minutes each, and that's if I'm doing it just on the surface level of the evidence for the refutation of whatever that claim may be. So you make a 20-minute video, say it's got 20 different claims in it. Now I got to spend 5 to 10 minutes per claim. It makes a super long video, like an hour long. I don't have time to do that, nor is it productive like you were saying. So I want to address the one question I asked. I only asked one question of you, but before we get there, I want to play a part of your video, your oldest video, the first one that you made where I disagreed with you on something. Well, I can't say that's the first one, because whenever you're speaking about God, I tend to disagree just because I don't believe, but I don't mention it. It doesn't bother me. But you made a specific claim about the science and what science is. So let's go through that a little bit, man, and see what we can unpack.
All of our history, we have never witnessed one kind giving birth to another kind. Now, I don't like to use the word species, because there are
a couple things there, and I think you're going to get into this here in just a second. But as far as I understand, there is not a definition for the word kind. Like, I get what you're saying, like these animals are so similar that we want to call those a kind, but there's no definition for it. And although I don't want to argue the Bible, but it seems like you do because of the things that you've said in these response videos, the Bible says some interesting things about kinds. Like, they say a bat is a bird. It's in the same kind. But we know that bats are not the same kind or same species as a bird. And it also says there's all kinds of birds, all kinds and sorts of birds. So what's a kind and what's a sort? But while we're on this topic, we have also never seen, ever seen anything specially created. We have not seen a God make anything. So we would expect to see new species poof into existence sometimes if Noah's flood was true. So at the rate of if the flood happened that long ago, at the rate of new species that we see, we'd have to see a lot of new species just poofing into existence. But we don't see that. Nor do we believe on our side, and I'm talking about science, not atheism, but we'll get into that. But we don't believe that anything can come from nothing, like a philosophical nothing, like a total nothing. I happen to not know if a total nothing exists, but the creationist claim actually does mean something can be created out of absolutely nothing. I mean, they're saying that a God spoke while there was nothing and produced everything. And I find that to be an extraordinary claim, but let's continue.
Different types of species, like there are different species of ants, for instance, many different species of ants, but they're the same kind. So what I mean by kind is, never has a bird given birth to a cat, never has a cat given birth to a dog, never has a dog given birth to a fish. It just never happened. So 100% of the time, a fish is going to produce a fish. So there has never been any type of evolution.
Okay, so your claim verbatim is, since one species has not given birth to a completely different species, then evolution has never happened. It doesn't exist. The problem here is, as I was trying to explain in my first video, that evolution as the theory of evolution by natural selection does not expect one species to give birth to another species. In fact, it's impossible, according to the theory. And the problem is, you are stating it as a piece of evidence that evolution doesn't happen. So this could be one of two things, right? One, I thought it was a straw man argument when you first mentioned this, and I made a comment for you in the description of that video, or not in the description, but in the comment section of that video, and we had a little exchange on it. So I thought this was just a straw man argument, because literally you are not describing evolution when you're talking about a cat giving birth to a dog or something like that. Since that's not a description of evolution, and you're saying that's the reason why there is no evolution, that would be a straw man fallacy if you knew what evolution says, but then you said something different. But I genuinely believe that you just don't know what the theory of evolution via natural selection actually states. And what I was getting at is Meyer's law of monophyly definitely says that you cannot outgrow your ancestry. One species, you will always have the primary characteristics of that species, even though later on you might have a mutation that gives you a certain advantage, giving you new genetic information, and then along the way you might lose the ability to procreate with the original species, which that would be speciation. Anyway, let's continue.
That because what he said was, within that context, he said that that actually supports evolution, that each species gives or yields its own kind. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, or maybe I don't truly understand what you meant or how you meant it, but it seemed that, I'm not sure if you were saying that it was those who discovered evolution that brought that fact out into the world, as far as each animal giving birth to its own kind.
No. So each species giving birth to its own kind is like the basic observation that any person would have been able to make since people were out here, man. Like we always see, even in biblical times, we see that cats give birth to cats and dogs give birth to dogs. But that I think this is an attempt to answer my question, but it doesn't. So, like, my question really is, why is it that you use this as an argument as far as one kind not giving birth to another kind is an observation you would expect to see if evolution is true, because that's not even close to what evolution states. So yeah, evolution is just a label, man. It's a label for a specific set of observations. And when I'm talking about evolution, I am only talking about the theory of evolution via natural selection. That's it. But within all science, all it's doing is trying to, well, science isn't doing it, scientists are doing it, but all they're trying to do is describe our environment. So, but whether that be the universe, how the universe came to be as it is now, what explains the biodiversity we have, the many species of life that we have on this planet, or why, are we the center of our solar system? They're just looking for answers, right? So when they come up with an answer and a model that fits, they test it and all this good stuff, and when they come up with it, they create a label for it. So it's just a label for observation. It's not who discovered that one animal will give birth to the same animal, like debate. We're like, who discovered that first? I don't know. Probably the first people that were even remotely close to us as far as cognitive abilities. Moving forward.
Oh yeah, you said that that cats will always give birth to cats and apes will always give birth to apes. So to that, the question I have is, well, how did we evolve from apes if that's true, if that's your assertion, if that's the way that you understand evolution? How did we become human beings? We weren't always human beings. How did we become that? When did we become that you can't account for? And also, if I can be quite frank with you.
All right. I cut a little bit of that there off, but it's still in here, Jers. Don't worry. We're gonna talk about that too. But this is the second claim that I was going to talk about that I had an issue with, but I managed to work it into the first video so you could kind of understand where I was coming from. I chose apes will give birth to apes on purpose. I did that to illustrate this specific point, right? But I want to play the part of the video where you, not part of the video, but I want to play the video. Pretty much, I like your first response better, bro. When you first mentioned that, I like that. So I want to play that for the people, so you can see where the issue come from.
Given enough time, we could see an ape turn into a man. Well, why are there still apes? And how come there's still apes and there are men, but there's no half man, half apes?
All right. So the problem with this is that how would you describe what a half man, half ape would be? The reason why I chose that, or I looked at that and I was like, well, I definitely need to respond to this at some point, is because we meet every classification for the term ape, every last one of them, right? So when you ask to see a half man, half ape, it's like saying you want to see a half Rottweiler, half Shih Tzu. Like, it's like asking to see a half dog is what I'm saying. We are apes by the definition of what an ape is. So if you want to see something that's halfway as far as the way we look presently to what you would consider an ape, even though that is our classification, then your closest source for that would be in the fossil record, and her name is Lucy, right? But Australopithecus, I always screw that up. Australopithecus, something like that, right? But Lucy isn't the only one. That's the name of an entire species of primate. And the crazy thing about this species of primate is they share half of our physical attributes as we are now. So there is no such thing as like a missing link, because you could point to Lucy and say, hey, she's pretty much halfway between Homo sapien and our ancestor that we share, an ancestor that we share a common ancestor with, right? So that's the thing. The monkeys and apes and stuff that you see right now, we didn't evolve from them. They evolved alongside of us with a common ancestor. So there's a split between us and them. We're really close to what they are, and they're really close to what we are, but we are not the same. We did not come from them. We both come from an ancestor that split off and made different types of life.
Saw in your comment section where you said to a gentleman that there's more evidence supporting evolution than anything else.
Okay. That's not what I said. I said that there is more evidence supporting the theory of evolution than any other scientific theory. And just for some examples, the Big Bang theory, the germ theory of disease, what else? The theory of gravity. All of these things have evidence, enough evidence that they're granted the term a scientific theory. What I'm saying is that the theory of evolution has more evidence than all of those other theories, some of which you may accept, some of them you may not. That's neither here nor there. I just want to correct that little piece.
First things first, what do you mean by evolution? That's a very important question. I have to know that before we even really get too deeply into it. And I have to know that because if you're talking about evolution in terms of things changing over time, yeah, I'm in. I'm definitely in. I got that. I agree with that. Or if you're talking about, a species adapting to its environment, I'm in. I'm in again. I'm with that. But if you're talking about molecules to man without any intelligent design, I'm out.
All right, so I get why this is confusing, because evolution is a term that was selected by Darwin. That term already existed. So you can apply evolution to different things. But when I say the word evolution, I'm definitely only talking about the theory of evolution by natural selection, Darwin's theory, right? And what that theory means to me is that we have a proliferation of life on our planet, and we're trying to figure out how did so much life come to be, right? So then we started looking for the evidence of that, and the biggest chunk of that evidence is deceased species. So the things that we find in the fossil record. But so when I say evolution, right, I'm only talking about what the theory suggests as far as what you would call adaptation, microevolution, which is the same thing really. Microevolution. What happens is you get a mutation which adds new genetic information. That genetic information maybe give you something like an attribute or something like that, an adaptation that allows you to better succeed in your environment. So through those selective pressures, you might end up with a species that is better capable of getting food, and since they're better capable of finding a mate, something like that, right? So when that adaptation now, after they've made it, passes on to their children. So over time, you'll get bigger changes. So what you were looking at originally is no longer the same thing, but it never gave birth to something different. It's always going to be what it is plus something, right? So that's all it really means, man. So And I know you have a problem with us using time, but time is not something that I worship. It's not something that anybody worships as far as I understand. I guess I have to know what you mean by worship, because I definitely don't bow down and pray to time. Time is essentially a description of the passing of days, really. I mean, that's really all that is. And the evidence that we have shows that the earth is old, which makes me wonder, how old do you really think the earth is? Because as far as we understand, the earth is billions of years old, and the galaxy, the universe, I should say, is roughly 3 times older than that. And this is what the evidence points to. Now, we can go through and we can break down the lines of evidence of any of these things that I'm talking about, but I want to give you a surface level view of the ideas that are on the table. But again, we're not worshiping time, but at the same time, if the earth shows that it's billions of years old, then we have billions of years to look for what happened with life on our planet, right? And we find that we have what's called the geologic column, which is all of these separate pieces of sediment layers, rocks, and each one of them has different types of animals in it, right? So we can go back and we can date some of these materials to see how old they are. And I'm not talking about the fossils. You don't date the fossils, but you date the materials around. But you can see how old the earth is based on that. And what we can see is a cladogram essentially, which shows the development of these species over a vast amount of time.
Honestly, you're borrowing from my worldview in order to dispute my worldview, if that makes sense. As an atheist, you've used this word a few times now where you said truth, true and truth, and things like...
So, first of all, as an atheist, that only describes one position that I hold, right? That position is, I don't believe in a God, and I don't believe in a God because I haven't found sufficient evidence to warrant belief in this extraordinary claim. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. If you were to tell me that you have a pet dog, I would probably believe you because you seem like a trustworthy brother. But if you were to tell me that you have a pet pink elephant with a head of a unicorn, then I'm gonna need some more evidence, because I'm not gonna believe you. I know dogs exist. I've seen dogs, and I feel like you're financially able to purchase a dog, but I've never seen a pink elephant with a unicorn head. You know what I mean? So I would need more evidence for that. But that's why I'm not convinced, because I just haven't seen the evidence for God. And what I keep seeing from Christians, and it's usually apologists, is they're trying to poke holes in science. And those holes are not true, because they're either misrepresenting the science or they're just using straw mans, right? So not understanding what the science says does not mean that it's not true, right? Let's see here. You asked about, let's scale it back. Let's go back a little bit.
Honestly, you're borrowing from my worldview in order to dispute my worldview, if that makes sense. As an atheist,
atheism itself is not a worldview, right? Atheism is only the one position that I have about a belief or disbelief in a God, right? So when you say I'm borrowing from your worldview, and you expect me to have a worldview too, I get that you would attribute your worldview to Christianity, but I do not attribute my worldview to atheism. Atheism is just that one thing. Do I believe in a God or not? That's it. There is no worldview.
You've used this word a few times now where you said truth, true and truth, and things like knowledge And you're with that, you're borrowing from my worldview.
Wait, how? So are you saying truth and knowledge can only come from your worldview? So I have to believe in your specific God or a God at all just to have any knowledge? So let's break this word down too, because I've already mentioned what facts are, what evidence are, empirical evidence. But we do need to add a couple new terms in there and see if you agree. So the truth is just what the facts are. That's it. And remember, I said facts are demonstrable. Also, knowledge, or to know means to have knowledge. But I also hold knowledge as being the memory of what the facts are, essentially. But I also hold that since that's the memory of what the facts are, then you can't say that it's knowledge until you have a demonstration of it. Like, for example, this is a cell phone, right? Sorry. With that cell phone, I can make calls, take pictures, all that good stuff, right? We believe that this is a cell phone, but I can show you that I can make a phone call with it. I'm not going to do it, but you understand what I'm saying. I have knowledge that this is a cell phone. Make sure I didn't make a call right there. It sounded like I made a call. But I have a knowledge of a cell phone, right? That's it. That's a demonstration. Here. This is a hat. Looks like a hat. It's shaped like a hat. It will fit on my head. That's a hat. That's a fact. I have knowledge of this hat. But if you cannot provide a demonstration for what you claim to know, I hold that that doesn't move me. I have no reason to take it seriously. I have no reason to believe it until you can demonstrate the truth in it.
With that, you're borrowing from my worldview. What is truth in an atheistic society, in an ungoverned universe? What is truth? What does that even mean? Where did that concept come from? Did that concept evolve as well?
The concept of what is true has not, well, I mean, it might have evolved, but then we're mixing stuff up. I don't want to mix stuff up, because we can talk about the evolution of language, you know what I mean? But when I say evolution, that does not mean the theory of evolution for natural selection when you're talking about the evolution of language. When did the concept of the truth come out? It was before us. I mean, I grant that there's animals right now that know what the truth are. We have crows and ravens that are incredibly smart, as well as dolphins. They would be able to make truth statements if they could speak. So that's not something that's unique to humanity, and I can't tell you when that started. But to tell me that the truth and knowledge comes from your worldview is just no, bro. Like, no. If that were the case, then nobody would have truth or knowledge or be able to talk about true things or be knowledgeable about facts without being a Christian. And I'm sure that's not what you're saying, but that's how it sounds. Anyway, bro, I'm gonna wrap this one up. Hopefully I provided answers to everything that we needed to address based on these two topics. And the thing is, man, here's what I'm doing, just to break it down to you. I want to help you make your arguments better, because it's important to me that we as a people are more educated on what these topics are. I don't care if you continue to believe in a God or not, but I just don't want you to use incorrect arguments. Because, put it to you like this. Now that I've broken down what Myers' Law of Monophyly is and what evolution actually states, you can't go on and make another video and say, we'll never see a dog produce a non-dog, or we'll never see a cat give birth to a dog. That means evolution is false. You can't say that anymore, because I've told you and I've educated you what the terms are and what evolution has to say about that. So if you do make that claim again, you're directly lying, or you're setting up a straw man argument. And I don't think you're a lying type of dude. I just want to go through all of these pieces of arguments that you use, so that way you can be more informed about what it is that you're talking about. Because when I watch your videos, specifically ones I cut and trimmed down for here, I can tell that it's like you don't understand what the science is, right? You've made all these claims about all these different fields of science, but you're misrepresenting them every time. And I don't think that you know how you're misrepresenting them. If I can be frank and kind of blunt, I feel like you're getting all of these arguments from apologists, right? So you're not getting your information from science and trying to disprove the science. You're getting your information from pretty much a preacher, man. So someone like Kent Hovind or Ray Comfort or Ken Ham, these guys are telling you this stuff. They already know they're lying. They know they're lying. But you're getting your information from them like these are good arguments, and they're not. They're vast misrepresentations, or they're straw mans, right? There's no two ways about it. So hopefully we can talk about these things, man, and get some of these things rubbed out. Because ultimately, I don't care what you believe, but you know, I'm a fan of your channel. I watch your channel, and then you start to say what atheists believe, and it gets all crazy, man. Like, let me illustrate this a little bit further. Atheism doesn't have shit to do with science, bro. It just doesn't. Like, I became an atheist by reading the Bible and asking myself this one specific question. Wait a minute. I'm reading this Bible, but there are other gods and other religions? Which one of them is right? And that sent me down a path of exploration to learn into some of the other religions to figure out which one is right. Because if this is the biggest question that we've got, is there a God? I want to know. All these people claim to have answers. I want to know which one is right before I waste all of my time. I mean, that just makes sense. But what I found is that none of these religions give us sufficient evidence for a God claim. All they do is they make the assertion, they show us the book, but when we ask for the evidence, there is no empirical evidence for a God. We've never seen anything specially or magically created. We don't have another universe to compare our universe to. There's a whole bunch of things that we just don't know. And instead of attacking all of these areas in science, which makes you've already made the comment that even if you disprove evolution, that does not prove that a God did it. You're still at an argument from incredulity. So if you're saying, man, this looks so complex, this is complicated, I don't know how anything else could have done it, therefore it must have been a God. That is definitely an argument from incredulity, and it's not something that you should employ as an argument that would convince somebody who knows the laws of logic. All right, I think I touched it all here and there somewhere, man. I don't know. I've been ranting a little bit, but I'm gonna go ahead and let you go, bro. Appreciate you watching this. Let me know how you want to steer this in whichever way you want to do it. If I didn't answer your questions thoroughly, or if you can answer my question, please drop that next video. But we can move on to another topic. Anyway, bruv, until next time, see.
Blackbeard.